Welcome to Inside Sim Racing and another post E3 show, and this one's going to be about Forza Motorsport 6. And sorry for the delay on this. I've just, since E3, have had a lot going on, and F1 2015 came out. I got the Logitech G29. I've got the AccuForce wheel that's sitting behind me here. So I had to put this one off and get to some other stuff, but anyway, still quite a ways for till the release. And figured I'd get this out for you guys just to let you know my thoughts so far. Speaking of the release, this is the 10th anniversary of the Forza franchise, and it's going to be out September 21st. It's going to have over 450 cars, all with Forza Vista compatibility. It's going to include 26 locations, including 10 newly built and captured tracks, in addition to all the returning tracks from Forza 5. It's going to include 5 new environments: Rio de Janeiro, Daytona, Watkins Glen, and Brands Hatch. And Indianapolis was recaptured and rebuilt after extensive 2014 track renovations. Forza 6 is finally going to have rain and day-to-night transitions. And I got to go to a behind closed door session at E3 with Ryan Cooper, who's the executive producer, and Bill Geise, the creative director. Unfortunately, I don't have any footage of that, but I was able to record some audio, and I've got some of the questions and answers, or some of the stuff that they talked about in that session. So Forza Motorsport 6 is going to be powered by the Forza Tech engine, which powers all the Forza franchise games. There's a new career mode called Stories of Motorsport, which allows players to become immersed in the history of motorsport, both past and present. It spans over 70 hours of gameplay, and you will have a series of volumes to select. And you can think of these volumes as individual careers. And this is basically, I'm quoting these guys from that session. The driver tire system has evolved based on what they've observed from Forza 5 and Horizon 2, and you can now turn on or off certain tendencies of the driver tires. They have a new multiplayer mode called Leagues, and to quote Ryan, "Leagues are ranked competitive races that are strictly enforced by divisions. They will take into account your skill as well as your temperament. The goal there is to create a fair and fun environment that is accessible to people of all skills." Now into one of the new features, rain, and they spent a lot of time studying rain and deconstructing it. They wanted to understand, what does it sound like, what does it feel like, and how does it drive? So I asked if the rain would be dynamic and change over the course of a race, and it does not. So the rain's basically going to be static, and you can only have rain at a track that it actually rains at. So for instance, there's not going to be rain at Abu Dhabi. And the same goes for night racing. So if a track doesn't support night racing, it's not going to be supported in the game. So back to the rain, one of the things they've introduced is puddles, and you can actually hydro or aquaplane in the puddles if you drive through them. Even one tire into them is going to change the way the car reacts. And I definitely felt the effects of that and had a hard time driving this Audi at Brands Hatch. What this is going to force you to do is alter your driving line in certain corners to avoid those puddles. Otherwise, you're just going to risk hydroplaning and losing complete control of the car. So as I mentioned, the rain is not adjustable and it's not dynamic, but they're trying to create an authentic experience. And they sent a team of guys out to observe exactly where puddles form at certain tracks, and they should be replicated in the game. They found that at Nordschleife, for example, there's more than 500 puddles. They have more than 20,000 different materials to create physical properties for those puddles and other types of surfaces. And there's 148 different types of surfaces that will affect how the cars behave. They say that the tracks are more alive than they were in the past. Their vision for night racing was to make it different than any other night racing experience that we've had in a video game. One of their goals was to make it feel claustrophobic like it does in real life. They want us to feel immersed in that claustrophobia. So I had a few other questions during that session, and one of them was, will they be adding a qualifying to the career mode, or will you be thrown into the race randomly like before? And their answer was that they have added a practice mode where you can learn the track and car combo and tune it accordingly, but it doesn't sound like there's any qualifying session. Another one of my questions was regarding force feedback and if it's been improved. Because in Forza 5, the force feedback only seemed to react at lower degrees of rotation no matter what the car. And they said that a lot of stuff has changed based on the physics, but they weren't specific. So now to my take on what I felt at E3. I drove a bunch with a gamepad, and that was a decent experience, although I suck at gamepad driving. So I tried every combo. I tried Rio, I believe Sebring, Brands Hatch, and I think they had one other track available. But anyway, I didn't get really a great feel for it because I was driving with a gamepad, and excuse my horrible gamepad driving. Then I got to drive it with the full motion VRX setup with a Fanatec CSW V2 that had a set of standard CSR pedals, which was honestly kind of a letdown. I would have liked to seen some Club Sports to just have a better braking experience. And I asked Thomas of Fanatec why they didn't have like the new V3s there, and he said they just couldn't make it happen last minute, and they were pretty much stuck with those CSRs. So anyway, the motion was a little overdone, in my opinion, kind of like a roller coaster ride. But it was cool to see that Forza 6 was able to output that much data to the motion platform, and it seemed real time. I didn't feel like there was much lag, if any. And I'm kind of curious how that was all set up. I'm assuming since it was on a triple screen setup, and I asked Alan Hartman, but I still haven't heard back from him. Is that going to be available to the public? Are you going to be able to have 3 Xbox Ones and run in triple screens? I mean, obviously it's possible, but I'm curious if you're going to need a PC to also help handle that, especially on the motion side of things. I'm really curious how that all worked. So that being said, it was honestly hard for me to get a good feel for what was going on. I really couldn't, I had basically sensory overload. I couldn't really tell what the force feedback was like. It was kind of hard to tell what the handling is like. And then I'd go to the rain and it was even more. It was just too many things at once to just differentiate between what was going on with the handling, the force feedback, the motion, graphics. So that being said, I don't have much to say other than it looks incredible. Those puddles were a freaking nightmare, which is cool. The night racing looked really cool. Frame rates looked good. Again, I can't comment on the force feedback. I really couldn't tell based on everything that was happening. Supposedly they dialed it back the next day, but I didn't get a chance to drive it. But I'm hoping to get a copy early to put it through some paces. Try it with the Thrustmaster TX, the Logitech G920 if it's available by then, and I may even boot it up with the Mad Catz force feedback wheel. I still have it here, so I might try it with all those. Hopefully you've enjoyed my coverage of Forza Motorsport 6 from E3. I wish I had more to tell you. I wish I had more time with it, but you know, it is what it is going to E3. There was a freaking line of 100 people wanting to try that motion platform. And the other thing too is I was only allowed 1 lap at each track in that particular car. So it's kind of hard to get a handle on things with just 1 lap. And I got to say though, one last thing too, that Ford GT, that new Ford GT, which they had a model of there at E3, was a beast. That thing was a handful to drive. I turned off all the assist, needless to say, and it was a handful to drive. So that's going to wrap things up for Inside Sim Racing. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. I'm Darren Ganji. I'll see you guys next time.